Our first question is from a listener named Joan, and she asks, how does nutrition change with aging?
Wow, that's a very simple question that we could provide a very loaded answer. Does it change? Yes, it changes. I think we become a little bit more intelligent and intuitive of what we're putting in our body. I think when we're younger, we have more of a buffer zone that we can eat a bunch of junk food and our body can buffer it, and we can still be fine the next day, full of energy and functional. Where we get older and we don't have as many buffers, and it could be this balance of antioxidants and free radicals, not being able to take up as many of the free radicals that we're getting with junk food, so it sits in our system and we start to feel sluggish and things like that. So that's one thing. I think we become more intuitive of what we're actually putting in our body. We were talking about this on the drive home, that our taste changes as we get older as well. Like there's things that I eat now that as a 8-year-old or 10-year-old, I would have stuck my nose up at and been like, no way am I eating sushi. Like that is a raw fish wrapped in rice. Are you? No. And now I love it. Now it's like, oh yeah, bring on more sushi. So our taste changes, and we don't really know why that happens. We don't know if when we're younger, we're conditioned to certain food groups and it makes us not want it. Like there tends to be a fuss about veggies. And what do kids love doing? Getting a rise out of their parents. So I don't eat my veggies, then I know I'm going to get a rise out of my parents, and that's kind of fun for me as a kid. So I'm going to put a stink up when I'm eating veggies. Or now as you get older, you're like, yeah, no, I'm going to eat the veggies because I should be eating the veggies. Yeah. Like that makes sense. I'll do that now. So choices change, taste changes. I think the big thing that changes is a lot of people say, oh, my stomach shrinks when I get older. And Marcus Philly has put out really good stuff in this area of, yeah, I don't think your stomach shrinks. I think it's that you're not eating the amount of calories that you were eating when you were younger. And we see this all the time. The typical morning breakfast for an adult is not food at all. It's coffee. Like they start their morning with coffee and then they go to work, and about halfway through the morning, they have another coffee. What does caffeine do? Caffeine helps to suppress your appetite. It makes you feel like you're not hungry, when reality is like, no, you should go get those calories. So I have 2 coffees through the morning, and then I have a light lunch, and then maybe another coffee or something in the afternoon, drinking water, and then they eat towards nighttime. So at the end of the day, they feel sluggish, they feel like they don't have a lot of energy, they feel like, oh, I don't use as much calories as I used to. And they're always like, yeah, because you're suppressing that feeling of wanting to have calories by just caffeinating. Like eat a bunch of protein in the morning, let that be used throughout the day so that you're burning fat-free mass, or that you're burning fat mass and other sources. So I think that's another thing that changes as we get older, is that we perceive that our stomach is shrinking, we don't need enough calories. But the reality is, like, we're not eating enough calories, and that goes with not doing enough activity. Like if you're doing less activity, then you don't need as many calories, which that's a whole nother discussion of you should be doing activity. You should be moving around. You should be skipping. You should be running, jumping, climbing, rolling on the floor, doing all that. And people are saying, oh, I'm too old for that. No, we see 90-year-olds that can skip, 90-year-olds that are doing gymnastics, 90-year-olds that are setting weightlifting records, rowing records. So you can do that. You have to do it. And if you're going to expend that energy, then you have to replace it. I think the last thing I'll touch on, because this could just keep going on and on and on and on, is there's a big thing of, as you get older, you need to eat more protein. Like you got to increase it. And that is a true statement, because the older that you get, you can become more anabolic resistance, meaning that you need more protein. But what we forgot to put into that answer of the requirements for older adults is, what are they doing? What is their activity? What is their lifestyle? Because research now is showing, I read a recent review article showing that if you remained active throughout your lifespan, you don't have to increase your protein requirements compared to the amount that you were eating when you were younger and perceived healthier, athletic version of yourself. So the typical requirement on the low end, 0.8 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. And then say as you get older, you got to increase that. Well, the truth is, you don't have to increase that if you've remained active. And it doesn't have to be a specific sport, but just remaining active. If you've remained active, you have the characteristics of someone 10, 20 years younger than you, that you don't need to increase the protein because you don't have the anabolic resistance, because you put in the work and you've done the activities to give yourself the biomarkers of a younger individual. And there's a lot of research on that. We wrote about it in the book. The 80-year-old weightlifters that had a health profile, that of 60-year-olds. We just saw the world champion in indoor rowing, that I forgot how old he was, 93.
Yeah.
But he had the aerobic capacity of a 30-year-old. So if you're doing these things, if you're being a lifelong athlete, guess what? You get to eat the same way that you did when you were younger. You don't have to crazily increase those protein requirements.
Sure. And also, if you have not remained active, what's stopping you from starting to become active again? Because you have a lot of life left ahead of you, and it's never too late to start, but you have to have the agency to know that you can make change and you can start, right? And I think that sometimes people forget that. But no, if you're listening and you're not super active, but you look at your life and you want to make changes, start making changes. You can.
Yeah, absolutely. And calories are fuel. They fuel you. They give you energy. Calorie is a unit of measurement of energy. So if I don't have energy, well, are you getting sleep? And then 2, are you getting the fuel that you need to perform? Carbs are not a bad thing. Butter is not a carb. It's a fat. If you've watched Mean Girls, you'll get the reference. But carbs are not a bad thing. Proteins aren't a bad thing. Fats aren't a bad thing. Just having the right amount of it for what you need for what your activity level is.
Perfect.